for being here. I know that it's hard to take time out of a work day to get to your children's school, and I'm just so glad you're here because there's a lot to cover. And when I first walked in, one of the women in the room said, "Am I going to leave feeling alarmed?" And it was a great question, and I said, hopefully informed rather than alarmed. And I think that's something I'd like to do to set the tone for the way that I view kids and technology use, is that they are doing things that we didn't do, and it's scary to us. But the bulk of the time, we need to take a deep breath and relax, because it's going to be okay. It doesn't mean that there aren't situations that merit alarm, and we're going to go through them, but you have more influence than you think, and you have more ability to know what's going on than you think. So first, before we get into the social media part of it, I want to give you a quick primer on the difference between bullying and normal social conflict, because if you don't know the difference between the two, when your kid comes to you and is having some situation, whether it's on social media or not, it's easy to think, my kid's being bullied, and to get very worked up. And bullying demands a worked up response. But what I have found in interviewing thousands of kids is that many of the things that happen actually qualify as what we call normal social conflict. And it doesn't mean that they're not painful, and it doesn't mean they don't need to have a response, but it's a different response. So the other thing I want to say from the start is that I am happy to make a PDF of my slides available to every one of you. So you don't need to take notes, because there's going to be a ton of content. You don't need to try and write down everything I say. My slides are very content-rich for the specific purpose of helping grown-ups after the presentation be able to take it and look at it. Okay? So let's just relax and enjoy talking about all this good stuff. So first of all, understanding painful situations. How many of you had a kid get in the car and say they were mean to me? Or had a kid at home say, yeah, people are being mean to me? Pretty common, right? Well, let's take a look at mean, because mean means different things in different scenarios. First, let's look at what actually bullying is. Bullying, number one, it's a repetitive action. So it's happening over and over again. It's not just one bad day. Two, bullying is an unwanted interaction. It sounds very obvious to us that it's an unwanted interaction, but to kids, when they get called out on any unkind behavior, they will shirk the accountability by saying, oh, I was just kidding. LOL, like no. It's a way of shifting the blame to now the victim. You're being too sensitive. Here I am having fun and you're overreacting. So the bullying child will try and make it look like it was a two-way interaction. There's a very easy way to shut that down, by the way, and it's this. Teach yourself or your child, and I say yourself because there are many adults who have people repetitively do mean things to them and say, I was just kidding. So you say to the person, you know, when you wrote that about me, I didn't think it was funny. If the other person says, like, no, I was just kidding, LOL, then you can say, okay, kidding means both parties find it funny. Now that you know I didn't find it funny, you won't do it again if you were really just kidding. So let's say it's the next day and the same person does the same thing to you. And you say, hey, it's not okay. And they'll say, remember, I'm just kidding. And you say, no, you got a one-time free pass with the just kidding excuse. You know I don't think it's funny. So now you can't, at least be honest, be accountable. Say I was just doing it to be mean instead of I was just doing it to be funny, because you already know it's not funny. So we want to be able to shut down that excuse, and a lot of adults need to learn how to use that excuse as well. Okay, so repetitive, unwanted, as in not kidding, and finally, it occurs in the context of a power imbalance. It might be a bigger kid against a younger kid, a group of kids against one or two. It might be a kid with more perceived popularity against a kid with less perceived popularity. Who can think of a place where we can measure, literally measure popularity in a way that we couldn't when we were in school? And Instagram. 1,000 followers versus one with 20. Who's going to do more damage quickly by putting up a mean picture? Someone with 1,000. Now, here's the key. For a situation to be bullying, it needs all three of these qualities together. It has to be repetitive, unwanted, and occurring in a power balance. One of the ways you'll know if you have actual bullying is a fourth condition inevitably develops, and that's fear. The kid who's being bullied starts to fear the place where the bullying is happening, anxious before logging on, doesn't want to go to PE, doesn't want to go to school, doesn't want to get in the car with that group of boys or girls. So that fear is the indicator of the power imbalance. So what about social conflict? Well, it's very similar in some ways to bullying. It's often repetitive and unwanted. It might be two kids who are really good friends but fight constantly. Every time you turn around, their phone is blowing up with rude texts to each other, and yet they're still friends. The difference is there's no power imbalance. Neither kid thinks the other has the power to take away his or her friends. So it could be where you could say to your friend, cut it out, you're being a jerk, and you don't think, tomorrow she's going to make sure no one else is talking to me. That kid doesn't have the power to ruin your life. And it's really important to understand this because very, very, very many interactions that our kids have are social conflict. Social conflict is also usually about something external, like you could take it away from the situation. Let's say two kids have been best friends, and a third kid joins their class, and they're both vying for the attention of that third kid. If that third kid weren't in the picture, their relationship would have been okay. Or let's say you have two guys fighting over a video game, and if they weren't playing the video game at that moment, things would be okay. So there are external things you can separate out. Bullying is internal. There's nothing to separate out. You can't, it's like saying you're a slut, you're ugly, you're a fag, you're retarded. There's nothing to take away from the situation. It's an internal attack. So this is, important to know as a starter before we go into behaviors that kids have. So how should adults respond to bullying versus normal social conflict? Well, quite frankly, in normal social conflict, we should stay out of it. We should try and let the kids work it out. We should hang back. But in bullying, someone is being victimized. And victimization is very, very dangerous. So we need to jump in. And that's why it's important for you to know which one your kid is facing, because it guides how much you get involved. Now, with the social conflict, the number one reason why we want you to hang back is our kids need to learn how to deal with social conflict healthfully. They are really bad at it right now. They get a bad model from TV. There's not a lot of focus on how to talk out our problems. And so we want to say to them, this is normal social conflict. We want you to work on it. It doesn't mean we aren't there to help and listen, but we want kid-oriented solutions. We want them to be coming to you saying, should I try this or that, instead of you saying, go tell her this, go tell him that. Here's why. Here's why those talking skills are so important. Because unresolved social conflict can and often does deteriorate into bullying. So what starts as the social conflict deteriorates into bullying. An example I'll give you that I'm going to give to kids is, and this is from a real school I worked at, names were changed. Sophia and Jane both liked a boy named Charlie. Charlie decided that he liked Sophia back. Jane, initially, it was a normal social conflict. The conflict was about Charlie. If you took Charlie out of the picture, Sophia and Jane were both feeling okay about their friendship. Okay, so Jane has some strong feelings now. She's feeling jealous. She's feeling angry. She's feeling rejected. But because Jane doesn't know how to talk about her feelings or deal with her feelings healthfully, she does what so many kids do and takes them underground. She starts rumors that the reason Charlie likes Jane and likes Sophia is that Sophia sent him nude pictures and that Sophia's a slut. Well, now Sophia hears about what's happening and she gets upset, and she's rightfully angry. And Jane is saying, to other friends, don't hang out with her, don't spend time with her because she's, she acts this way. Watch what's happened. It started as a conflict about Charlie. But is it about Charlie anymore? No, it's a personal attack that's going on Sophia. It has shifted from normal social conflict to a bullying dynamic simply because Jane hasn't really figured out what to do with all those uncomfortable emotions. So, let's first look at the types of conflict that are common in high schools like USM, and then I'm going to teach you a few things to talk with the kids about how they can work to resolve conflict so that they don't become the Jane who does these things. And after we've gone through this, then we're going to move to talking about how these things play out on social media. All right, so the most common types of conflicts in a prep school and upper school prep school are on social status, popularity, athletic achievement, appearances, material items. There's not so much gang violence here. If I were in a school in the middle of the city of Chicago, it'd be a different list. But this is what happens here. So the first thing that a kid needs to learn to say when a kid is feeling strong emotions towards another kid, unhappy ones, anger or jealousy, was there an inciting event or not? Sometimes it's not even a conflict, in that a conflict usually means two people are bringing something to the table. What if a friend of yours just gets the lead in the school play? Or what if someone gets into the college you wanted to, and as a result, you're really jealous and upset, and you don't want to obviously be jealous and upset, so that's when you're most at risk of like going to the internet and doing something anonymous unkindly. But really, was there an inciting event that the other kid did to you, or is this a more internal situation where you have to figure out how to cope with your own internal emotions? So sometimes conflict is that a kid will do something crappy to you. Sometimes the inciting event is a friend did something, lied to you, took something from you, mistreated you. But other times, our urge to hurt is coming from just internal feelings. So it's important for kids to learn to read what's going on with themselves. We also need to learn to focus on the real issue in the conflict. So, especially we see this all the time online. If someone starts a rumor about you, instead of saying, that's an untruth what you said about me, and I hope anyone reading this will take it down, people are like, shut the F up and die. And they switch to personal attacks instead of focusing on the real issue. We want to teach kids you can feel anything you want, but you can't do anything you want with those feelings. Any feeling is okay. Any action is not okay. So sometimes, especially if the issue is internal conflict, jealousy or resentment, and this is a big driver of some of the mean social media use. Someone will see a beautiful selfie of another person and they feel jealous. So then they try and anonymously comment on it. You're so ugly, even if it's a friend of theirs. It's because of their own feelings. We want to teach girls and boys to recognize, oh, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling this uncomfortable feeling and this desire to hurt someone, but it's that I'm feeling jealous. So, now what do we do when we know we have those feelings? First, slow down. Resist the urge to act on that impulse. Second, I try to talk to kids about the circle of pain. If you're hurting, the circle of pain is you. You have a couple choices. You can do something mean to your friend because you're feeling mad, and it's very common to try and do mean things when we're mad, and that will expand the circle of pain. Now you're upset and your friend is upset, and maybe your friend's parents will get upset, so the circle grows. What I recommend kids do instead is stop, and instead of expanding the circle of pain, take steps to comfort yourself, especially if it is simply internal conflict. Write about it in a private journal. Take a bath. Listen to some music. Read a book. Take a walk with your dog. Just recognize, oh God, before I go on to Snapchat and send something mean, let me try and comfort myself. Usually the feelings of anger and rage will pass if we do a little work around our own selves. So these are all important parts of healthy conflict and slowing down the impulsivity that drives some of the unkind behaviors. So now that I've given you that primer, and if anyone has any questions, you can ask me at the end, but I find it's a really useful background. Now let's move specifically into social media and digital citizenship. Okay, so number one thing, when you talk with kids, they start to close their eyes every time adults bring up social media and they hear rah, 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 rah. Because we come with them and we're like, don't cyberbully, don't send nudes, don't this, don't that, don't, are you sharing porn, what's going on? And so they immediately shut down. So before we get to that point, those are all very good things to be talking about, start from a place of, what's your favorite site? You spend a lot of time on YouTube. What are some of your favorite music videos? I do this with my own teenager. We had an experience earlier this year where I discovered that our own Net Nanny service had, and I'll talk about Net Nanny, had slid. My husband didn't realize that he hadn't paid the renewal, and he was doing something on the computer, and he saw in the search engine RedTube. For those of you who don't know, RedTube, and I have a slide listing sites to be aware of, RedTube is a massive teen pornography site. And so he and I did two things. First, we put in our Net Nanny subscription, so now it can be accessible. But then I was thinking, I have to talk to my daughter about this. How do I talk to her about this without coming on like a ton of bricks? And so it was a matter of show me your favorite things on YouTube. Oh, I see all these different ads that come up. Oh, I see some of the sexualized ones. Have you ever seen something come up where people are unclothed? Yeah, do you ever click on those? It must be very interesting. Oh, have you ever encountered pornography? Let's talk about this. It wasn't like a shameful, you're a terrible kid thing. It was more of a show me how we got here, and let's talk about it. So ask them what they're doing. Tell them to show you. Tell them, and the truth is, the kids do far more harmless things online than harmful. They spend a ton of time looking at Pinterest and building Minecraft, and they spend a ton of time looking at tutorials on how to put on makeup, and they really aren't out there constantly sending messages to each other that say, die, you idiot, die, even if it feels like it. And so we want to approach the conversations from that point of recognition. And we want them to know that although I do recommend blocking access to certain things, like we did block access to RedTube, we did. But with many things, blocking access is a temporary issue because new apps appear as fast as, last year everyone wanted to block Yik Yak, but then something else comes along. So the bigger picture is teaching our kids how to be emotionally intelligent and how to recognize if I'm using an app that doesn't make me feel good, I want to know to walk away instead of having mom or dad just block it, because they're always going to find something else. Okay, so how often are people using social media? A lot. Every second, 4,000 pictures go up on Facebook, 100 minutes of video go up on YouTube. We're talking about massive creation of content, very little impulse control with some of this content. And teenagers are notorious for low impulse control. How much time do kids spend with screens? Well, the average 8 to 10-year-old is spending over 8 hours a day with screens, and the older kids it's even more. One of the reasons why this is so addictive is that the social media is what we call an unpredictable stimulus. If you put rats into a maze and you put cheese at the end, the rats will learn to always run and get the cheese. But studies show that if you put rats in a maze, and sometimes you put cheese in the end, but not always, they run faster. It's more exciting. Like, maybe there'll be something, but maybe not. And that's how social media is. Every single time someone picks up their phone, there might be a new something, but there might not. There might be something good, but there might not. That is why people are constantly checking. Think about from your own behaviors and how often you use your phone. If you knew that new emails, new messages, and new Facebook stuff always came in at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., there would be a big checking happening around 9 a.m., but you wouldn't be constantly checking all day long. You'd know, okay, the next time it's coming is 9 p.m. Why would you keep grabbing your phone and scrolling through the same thing? You'd have the same information. So it's the fact that it's not predictable, and that every time they pick it up, there's the possibility of reward, of a new message. That's why they're so addicted. If you can explain this to your kids and to yourselves, it can help you say, okay, I'm not the rat excited about the cheese, let me control myself. I'm gonna set, and actually with my own kid, we have certain times, like she does 3 times a day where I'm like, have at it, go check everything. And in between, we're like, okay, take a break. So, tweens and teens are mimicking our behaviors. And this is a hard reality. 92% of American children have an online presence before the age of 2. Whether it's an ultrasound that's up on Facebook, baby photos, announcements. By age 5, most children have had nearly 1,000 images put out there. So we can't be hypocritical at them to say, oh, why are you always putting images out there? Because we're proud of our children. We're putting the images out there from the time they're born of our darling, adorable, precious kids. So it gets problematic when you get into areas of like sexualization. You'll see videos parents post of 4 or 5-year-old girls scantily clad and dancing to hip-hop music, and that is a sexualized image, and it brings more views. And then we turn around and we wonder why we've got 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds in booty shorts and dancing sexually when they see everybody saying how cute it is on the little kids. Common themes that drive teen behaviors online. Well, hot or not is behind just about everything. Is this hot or not? Usually around looks, usually around women's looks. And hot or not is behind a lot of the sexualized activities. that are on the computer, but also a lot of the sexualized interactions between kids. A lot of kids tell me that they spend a huge amount of time trying to get the perfect selfie, that they brainstorm with people. I need the caption, I need the right caption. There are kids who do hair and makeup before taking a selfie, kids who take 50, 60, 70 selfies before taking a selfie. This is time that they're not spending learning their calculus and their history and their geometry and all those awesome things because their mind is so occupied with that selfie. But the fact is, they've learned that quite honestly. I mean, look at Kim Kardashian. She became famous from a 15-minute leaked sex tape. And she and her family are very much part of this culture, this porn culture, this selfie culture. But the kids are not stupid. They see that she now has millions of dollars and, books and all these rewards from it. So when we say to them, this is so stupid, you have to understand that they see someone who gets a lifestyle that was rewarded for those behaviors. And so the prevailing attitude amongst kids is porn culture. Porn has had a much bigger influence on kids than we realize. They start seeing it much younger than we realize. If you have kids ages 9, 10, 11, if you think they haven't encountered something, talk to them. I remember when my 9-year-old told me that we were recently trying to sell Girl Scout cookies, and she ran over to my computer and in YouTube put in Girl Scout videos. Like she wanted to see videos of girls doing cookie selling. And what came up was not okay. And she was pretty shocked. So shocked, in fact, that I had to buy a book for her. It's a wonderful book for any of you with younger kids. It's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And Good Pictures, Bad Pictures talks about why kids are drawn to looking at porn, why it's unhealthy for them, and how it affects their views of sexuality. It's a text-rich picture book, perfect for 8, 9, 10, 11. I even had my middle schooler read it, and she thought it was a good book. So, we have to understand why our kids are behaving the way they are. So let's look at cyberbullying. What forms does it take? Pretending to be someone, posting mean pictures about someone, tagging someone in an unflattering picture, just anything where you're either tricking someone or trying to make them look bad in front of others. What sites and apps are wildly popular with kids? Well, these sites up here in my research with kids are the ones that are most common. And any site has the potential for problems. For example, I have over in red highly concerning sites, but Snapchat could be a highly concerning site depending on how you use it. So when I say highly concerning sites over here, these are the ones with the highest correlation to sex crimes, to cyberbullying, suicides, things like that. So you want to know, are my kids on these things? Are my kids looking at these things? If you have a kid who's got a sea of little icons on their phone, stop and look at them. A sea of icons? Like if there's all these different images on their phone, stop and look at them to see what it is. Because it's very, very, very uncommon for parents to actually know all the different things that are on the phone. And the kids are very smart about how to trick us. So let's talk about, knowing a little background in the sites they use, what things make conflict online get worse? Well, the biggest problem with online conflict is that it puts everyone in the position of having no idea of intent of emotions. There's no voice inflection, there's no facial expression, the simplest statement can be taken as offensive, and people jump on that. We actually think it's good for kids to use emojis. It helps clue people into their intent. So if your kid is, a sarcastic kid or a kid who likes to be funny, tell the kid, you know what? When you're saying something that is so obviously funny to you, throw in the winky face. Throw in the LOL. Just clue the other person into the intent of what you're saying. Also, more people will be mean online than in person. There's a lot of kids who wouldn't dare speak in school directly to the most popular kid and cut that person down. But those same kids would be happy to go in the back doorway, set up a fake account, and hurt someone online. So there's just a higher risk of being targeted online at any time because kids who are scared to do it in person are not scared to do it online. Let's think about the intersection of funny and mean. And this is an idea I'm going to talk about with the kids. How many of you have Facebook or Instagram or something? Okay, great. So you put a post up, and you do it because you get reward. So if you put a nice picture of your family, then every time someone writes, "This is so nice," or "What a beautiful family," it's like a little dopamine hit to you. It's a little, a little good feeling. How long would you say something lives in your newsfeed? Like, let's say you put up a picture of your family. Is it a couple hours, a couple days, a couple weeks? How long is it that people are actively commenting on that picture, do you think? A couple hours to days, right? So social media is a hungry beast. It moves on quickly, right? So you put something out there, and you're doing it because you get these dopamine hits, and you get that positive feedback for a day or two. Now imagine that you're a kid, and you have something mean but funny that you want to post. And if I put up this picture of the kid who fell asleep, who's drooling in math class, and I tag her, I might get some new followers, I'm going to get likes, people are going to be like, giving me comments like, "Oh my God, that's hilarious," and share it. And every time that happens, that's a dopamine hit to the kid who's putting it up. It's that good feedback. But in a couple days, things have moved on. And that kid is no longer continuing to get the good feedback of likes and shares. But if you're the kid who was the target, if you're the kid whose picture we shared, how long do you think it lasts, the embarrassment? A couple hours? A couple days? Years? Years. So I like to get kids to think about the intersection of funny and mean. Is your couple days of, clicks, likes, etc., that you're getting worth it when the person who is the target of it, the girl that you called slut, or the butt shot you took of someone, the person who's now known by this act, it might be one of their defining memories of that 9th grade or the 12th grade. So we want kids to just slow down and rethink about this. Here are it's a quick video tip for responding to cyberbullying, just in case kids know all these things, but this is for parents too.
Cyberbullying, whether it's done online or over a cell phone, can take families by surprise. But if your kids are texting, sharing photos, and posting comments, it's important to have a conversation with them about what to do if they become a target of online harassment. Here are 5 tips to share with your kids about dealing with cyberbullies. First, don't respond or retaliate. If you're angry or hurt, you might say things you'll regret later. Plus, retaliation only prolongs the problem and doesn't solve it. Second, block the bully. Block phone numbers, screen names, and email addresses, and remove the person from your buddy or friends list. Third, save the evidence. Print out or take screenshots of abusive messages and keep them as proof. Fourth, report it. Most websites have rules against cyberbullying. You can usually find information on how to report abuse in the site's community guidelines. And finally, tell a trusted adult. Telling a teacher or a parent isn't tattling, it's standing up for yourself. And even if the bullying occurs online, your school probably has rules against it. For more cyberbullying prevention tips and advice, visit us at commonsense.org.
All right, I love that one. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of the specific sites that the kids are using the most. Instagram. Instagram is huge. Instagram is a big source of what's called FOMO, fear of missing out. Because anytime someone goes online, they will see something other people are doing without them. It's just, if you have friends, and it's a day that ends in Y, people are out doing things. So, one of the things that I try and teach kids to do is take a more empowering view of how they feel about it. Instead of saying, well, I've been left out, I'm not there. Try and say, hey, I choose to be doing what I'm doing here. I chose to come to this movie with these 2 girls, and this is what I want to do, and I'm happy doing this. So when I see a picture of those 5 kids going out to dinner there, I want to remind myself, okay, it's not that I've been rejected, it's that this was what I chose. We want to have a view of things that isn't from a point of rejection, but from a point of strength. And it can help kids. If you find that you're feeling left out all the time, that your mood is down after going on Instagram, more than up after going on Instagram, be aware of that and step away from it. Don't go on it as much if you know it's going to cause pain. So Instagram, it's very, very fake because it allows kids to have these highly crafted, very edited images. If you talk to kids, before they put a selfie out, they often use Photoshop and edits and filters and lights and wind machines to make their hair look good, and hanging upside down at just the right angle to look slender and crazy poses. And then other people see it, and it looks amazing. But it's very, very not real. And we have to remind kids it's not real. The other thing is, I don't know if you know, but kids have these Instagram celebrities who they just follow, and they're like gods to them. Not just like TV and film stars, but kids who you may have never heard of. People who are just, Instagram stars. They have millions of followers. Many of them are teens who think everything these kids do is godlike. So a lot of kids also have a Finsta. If you monitor your kid on social media, which I recommend, it's very possible that your kid has a second account, a Finstagram, where they do what they're really doing. And Finstas can be used for two purposes. One can be to hide from parents, but a second reason is that because collecting followers is a sign of popularity and status, sometimes kids will have 800, 900 followers on their Instagram account, and they want people to see that. But then they actually want a place where they can share their real stuff with their closer friends. So, a place where they want to have the fun of the interaction with the 20 or 30 people who are in their crew. And so they have the Finsta, not because they're trying to be awful or evil or hide anything terrible from mom or dad. Don't always take that interpretation of it. It might be that they just want a safe place to put a picture that they didn't have to edit 500 times before putting it out there. So if you find out your kid has a Finsta, before freaking out, find out how they're using it. It might be that they just want a safe sort of inner group where it's not so public. And I do that with my public Facebook page for my blog. It's called Portrait of an Adoption. It has thousands of people. So then my intimate group is my personal page, and I don't accept friend requests from anyone if I've never met them in person there. And I'm very, very careful about it. So it's kind of like that, the second Facebook page. So before we interpret these things as evil, let's at least find out how they're using it. Snapchat, in some ways, is more real than Instagram. Like, some of the pressure's off, because in Instagram, you can do all this editing before you put out a picture. But in Snapchat, there's very few abilities to edit, so what you put out is what you get. And in some ways, that removes the stress. People don't have to look perfect. The other thing is Instagram is extremely heavily focused on user feedback. People can click the like, people can give comments. So the content becomes less important than the feedback. Kids spend more time trying to see who's saying I'm beautiful or who's saying I'm ugly than anything else. But in Snapchat, you lose that. There's not commenting, and there's not clicks and likes and stuff. So in that respect, it's kind of refreshing, because it frees kids up from having to, see who is making it a popularity contest or not. The problem with Snapchat is that it's really bad for impulse control, because the whole thing about it is it allows kids to send an image or a video that will disappear within 10 seconds from the screen of the recipient. And the number two places where boys ask girls for nudes are Snapchat and Kik Messenger. Because they're like, just send it to me, baby, and it'll disappear from my screen in 10 seconds. And we all know that if you click a screenshot, then even if it disappears in 10 seconds, they've got that picture and they can send it around. So it is important to know, the pros and the cons of a site like Snapchat. Okay, so what I try and tell kids is, before you send something, just say to yourself, what if this one went viral? What if grandma saw this one? What if, this was the one that got away? Would I be okay with that? How would I feel about that? The other thing that parents should know about are Snapchat stories. A Snapchat story is a series of photos or videos that has been put together, and it's viewable for 24 hours. So if there's a Snapchat story that is a series of nude photos of girls, one that was very famous, there was one that came out of Syracuse a few years ago. Syracuse, someone, and they didn't figure out who did it, took a series of pornographic images of Syracuse students and made a Snapchat story and put it out there, and it went crazy viral as people were viewing it. So, it's important to know how, even if something is only viewable for 24 hours, it can get around. And kids need to know that. Okay, YouTube. YouTube is one of the most used sites on the planet. Has 1 billion users. 1 billion users on YouTube. And YouTube is, for kids and teens, following someone on YouTube to them is just as important as following a star we know or a star we've heard of. Kids can become these beauty gurus, these makeup gurus, hair gurus. Any kid can position himself or herself as an expert in something and start a line of videos. And these videos can get millions and millions of uses. This kind of goes back to the whole Kardashian influence, where kids see that there are some rewards for behaviors that maybe can be questionable. Parents see it too. If you look, it shows, some of the shows, toddlers in tiaras or things like that, you'll see parents putting out sexualized images of their children because people watch it. And if people get enough views on a YouTube channel, it can be monetized. You can get huge amounts of money and dollars and advertisers. So this culture of sexualizing children and putting them out there for views, it can start even with parents. So if you have let's say you have a really cute 3 or 4-year-old daughter, and she's doing a really cute dance to, Beyonce's song, Single Ladies, think twice before videoing it and putting it out there, isn't this cute, on Facebook? Because the message that you're sending might be one of an unhealthy sexualization. And we don't want to do that to kids without thinking about what we're doing. Maybe it's not cute. Maybe it's not cute to show our little girls in these provocative, poses with the duck-faced lips when they're 4 or 5 years old. So a couple things to think about. Conversations that should take place in person and not online. This is a real problem with kids. So kids, and we should talk about this with our kids, don't do breakups over text. Don't do breakups online. Have the decency to either call the person, even if you are long distance, call the person on the phone and say, I just want you to know, this is why I'm doing this, and here's how I feel. It doesn't belong. It's not appropriate. Also, calls for psychological help. Calls for I'm cutting, or everyone has left me and I'm lonely and it's just, this is the end. Those things are inappropriate on social media. If you see a kid doing it, let the parent know. Let the school social worker know. These are very clear calls for help. And it's just not a safe place. The reason it's not a safe place is this. The predator types look for these types of posts. And they find those kids, the kids who are writing things like, nobody likes me. And then they sweep in on a Kik Messenger or this or that and become their friend. And they seek out the lonely kid. And they seek out the kid who is vulnerable. So if you see someone doing this, you have to realize that if you're seeing it, lots of people are seeing it. And sometimes the wrong people are seeing it. And we don't want someone who does have a predatory mindset trying to lure in a lonely kid. Also, kids love to talk about a conflict vaguely, where everyone knows what it is. So, well, someone had a meltdown in math today, or, yeah, that was a real mess last night, wasn't it? And then, of course, it feeds the frenzy of speculation and whatnot. That is drama. Drama is when a conversation plays out in front of an audience. So we can tell our kids, if you have a conflict, and this goes back to the healthy social conflict resolution, healthy conflict resolution should not play out in front of an audience. So if your child wants to talk out a problem with someone, don't do it where other people are going to see it. That's not healthy. That's now drama. Because now you're going to get unsolicited people's opinions and people talking about it, and it adds to that paranoia feeling of everyone's talking about me. So the more that we can de-escalate, the better. De-escalate and talk in person. We need to change the dialogue around sexting. A lot of the dialogue around sexting right now is don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, which obviously we want the kids to know. But I think there's even a more important question. I think we need to find out, if you're doing it, why? Because this can help clue us into which kids are at more risk psychologically. For example, I would be more worried if I found out that a kid was sexting because she was trying to get the attention of someone else, That would worry me more than if I found out she was sexting because she'd been dating someone for 8 months and he said, show me a nude, and she sent him a nude. Because if you're using your body and your sexuality just to try and get someone's attention, it shows how little you value it. Someone who you're not even yet in a relationship with. Or I'd be worried if someone said, well, I think he's going to break up with me, and so I'm sending him nudes. So if you're using your body or your sexuality to try and keep someone with you who is not interested, that's more harmful. So when we talk with our kids, we want to find out, A, are you sexting? And B, if you are, why? Because if we know that our kids are using their bodies as currency in this way, it informs us how to respond. We need to do more work with them around self-validation, more work around explaining the objectification of the body. There's sexual empowerment, which is a girl saying, I'm doing this because I like to and I feel good about it, and this is my choice and I trust him. And I still don't recommend that because I think it can lead to problems. Let me just be clear about that. But that is still very different than someone who's like, well, nobody will talk to me, so if I do this, people will talk to me. And we see both. We see both. So, these are all important conversations to have. Reactions to sexting can reflect a lot of inherent sexism in our culture. So, if you talk to kids, and these are from conversations with children ages 12 and up. The boys sometimes send what's called the dick pics. And if girls get dick pics, the overwhelming response is to laugh or say, gross. And there's really no repercussion to the boys. No labeling of them as a slut, no ruining of their reputation. It's more like, oh, I got a dick pic. There's actually a whole website called Women's Responses to Dick Pics, and it's like funny videos of women going, but it's like this big joke. And so it's like this big joke about how, oh, gross, who would send me a picture of a penis? Oh my God, whatever. But it's a response that still is like, But if you look at the response to a girl who chooses a nude, it's not like, she's a slut, or she's a thought. Thought is their word for that hoe over there. Or she's a whore. It's immediately a different type of response. So we need to have these conversations around this double standard. And particularly understand how hard it is for girls because they struggle. If in talking with teens, they'll tell you, if a boy asks for nudes and you don't do it, you're labeled a prude. If you do it, you're labeled a slut. There's not easy ways to go. So we need to have these conversations and say to our girls, you don't have to do it. It's okay. And you don't have to accept the label of prude. You can say, I'm not a prude, I just respect myself and I don't know where those are going. And here's the fact, this is really real evidence. There's real evidence that shows that when girls send nudes, that content is sometimes used for revenge porn later, that's what it's called, or for cyberbullying. So any girl has the right to say, look, this is my body, and I have the right not to show this to you. Now what's the most fascinating of all is if you talk to the boys who ask for it, if a girl says no, they're just like, next, and they try and get it from someone else. So it's not like it even matters that much to them. It's because it's so accessible. The nude images are so accessible to kids that it's just like, okay, I'll try the next one. So we actually want to teach the girls. They don't even care that much. If you say no, they're just going to go to the next person. So don't put yourself in a situation because someone asked you when they'll just move on. It's not even, to them it doesn't even matter as much as, this is a huge thing, your body and your picture. What if they look at it 3 times and delete it? Was it worth it to you? Okay, so what steps can families take to provide technology oversight? So I do recommend monitoring software. We have it, and like I said, we've used it because we found that our kid was going on to RedTube. There are different ones. Some of the best ones are here. NetNanny is very good. Custodio. Depending on whether you have Android or iPhone or whatnot. Norton Family has great packages where you can get it for, you can buy a package that will cover 10 devices. 2 computers, 2 iPads, 3 cell phones, etc. So I recommend having the monitoring software. We have one on my daughter's iPhone called TeenSafe. and it allows me to go and download her deleted texts. And she knows I have it. I don't believe in sneaking around. I think it's important to say to kids, we're putting this in place. We're putting this in place. I want you to know. And it's not so much that we don't trust you, but that we know that other people will also reach out to you with things that are tempting and interesting. But we want to be there in case the train rides off the rails. If you talk to kids where things have gone wrong, they often say, I wish my parents had been like clued in more. So yes, you're going to get the line, get out of my privacy, this is mine. But let me tell you, they'd much rather have you there than not if something's going to blow up. So I'm going to show you a little video next. And it's this video. So how can you tell if a kid has hidden apps on the phone? And this next video, this guy who does such a nice job, I figured instead of you having to look at me talk some more, I'll let you listen to him talk for 3 minutes while he shows you, because he also has the examples. But the link is there so that you will be able to go home and do it. So, and I also recommend that you watch this a couple times and practice it. I practiced it with my own phone so that I knew how to find, and I found that my daughter had actually downloaded Instagram before we were ready for her to have it, that she had snuck it. And the way I found out is that I saw that even though it wasn't on her phone, it was under the cloud. It had been downloaded, and apparently she had deleted it before I took her phone at night. So it was very interesting to see, aha, now you can't do that. So why don't we watch this really quickly?
Hey there, my name is Josh. I wrote a book called Light, Bright, and Polite. And I want to show you in this video how to hide some apps on your phone. And then when you're done, I'm going to show you how to find out if your kids, your students, your teens have hidden apps from you. Okay, I want to show you how to do it first. Let's pretend like, and I don't like this app called Kick. Do you see that up there? I don't like this app. I think it's really, really bad for students. So let's see if we can go hide Kick. So first, you're going to grab it, hold it down. You're familiar with how you do this. Okay, so drag it over another app. But when you drag it over the other app, it should create an actual folder, which it normally does. So usually you can just drag it over that app, and there we go, folder. A little hard for me to do. It auto adds the word social, right? You can change that to whatever you want, but in this case you don't need to. What we're going to do is take the app that we want to hide from our parents. Now, I'm not trying to teach kids to be bad, but what I am trying to do is show you that you take the app, you keep the good app where it's at, you take the bad app and you drag it over one. Now, did you see how I did that? I created a new little baby screen down here, and now it's in screen 2. So you have 2 little dots. Now, the next trick we're about to do is take it from screen 2, take it over to screen 3, it's over in screen 3, and then click the big button on the bottom once. I'm going to click it once, and did you see how it flew away? Did you see that? It just flew away, and what happened was, it's gone. My parents can't find it, right? It's like, uh-oh. Now what happens is, Josh, how do you get that back? Well, all you need to do is reboot the phone. You hold down the front button, you hold down the side button, you hold it down, and it'll reboot the phone. When you reboot the phone, the app will appear on page 2, so you have to go over to their page 2. It still is kind of hidden, but it's not completely hidden. So that's how you do it. Let's go over it one more time, and I'll show you how to bring it back. Let's say I wanted to hide if. I don't need to hide if. Or let's say Snapchat. Like, oh, I don't want my parents to know I'm on Snapchat. So you drag Snapchat onto another one. It creates a folder, as we're familiar with. You go into that folder. You drag the bad app page 2, or on page 2. Okay, it creates a page 2, and then you got to do it again sometimes. It's on page 2. Let's go over to the 3rd page. It's on the 3rd page. One quick tap, and it's gone. I held it down. I did one quick tap, and it flew away. Now Snapchat's hidden. All right. So now what I'm going to do is, how do you get it back? Well, we're going to do this. We're going to hold both of these down, top button, the upper right, and the bottom button. We're going to hold it down, and now it's shut down, and now we're going to click, I think it's the upper right or the bottom. You click them both or something like that, and it'll slowly turn back on. Okay, I just unlocked my phone, and here we are. We rebooted it to try and get those apps back. So parents, you can reboot your kid's phone to get the apps back, and what we're going to do is go over to that page where we hid those. And you see the little 1 up there? That's because I have a Snapchat I haven't read. WhatsApp is there, and then watch this on page 2. Whoa, there's Snapchat. There's that one that we tried to hide. So it's back. right? Where did kick go? Well, sometimes they don't appear in there. Sometimes they appear on other pages. Look, kick is down there on my page 2 down there, bottom right. So they fly back in the front, all over. So one of the things you can do is reboot your student's phone, know that 4-digit passcode, and just go around. Now, one more thing we're going to try here, and the reason I'm going to show you this is, if you want to find out if your student has kick, you just type in KIK in their screen and you can see if they have it, right? There's another trick too that you can do. You could actually go to the App Store, which we're doing right now, go to the search button, go to search real quick, and you're going to type in KIK, and when you type in kick, I've showed you this before, that means somebody has it. It's not only has been downloaded before, but now it's time to update it. If you see a cloud, that means your student downloaded it in the past, deleted it, and it's asking to download again. But if it says the word get, that means it's never been downloaded. Thanks for watching this video. You can click the links on the screen.
Okay, so when I first watched that a while ago, I tried it, and when I went to that, and I found nothing on my kid's phone, but when I went to the App Store, I saw that at that point, Instagram, it said a cloud, meaning she downloaded it before. So I talked to her, and the whole truth came out. Yes, I did it, and it was really good discussion to have. So I wanted to share the video because I think it's important. And so, like I said, I'm going to send you all my slides so you can just recreate some of this. So when kids, and I know we're running out of time, so I probably won't get through all my material, but what happens when the kids make a mistake? One of the mistakes we make is that we have had kids who are more afraid of coming to tell us they screwed up than they are of the consequences of continuing to lie. That's our mistake. We need to do a better job of saying to them, you're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes. I have no doubt you're going to make mistakes. And when you do, come to me and we'll figure it out. Your life will never be made worse by coming to me for help. It's the same message you're going to give them around drinking and driving. You're going to tell them, don't drink and drive, don't go to a party and drink, don't go to a party and drink. But I'm sure you'll also say to them, if you go to a party and you do drink, call me, I'll come get you, don't get in the car. So it's that same thing. We're going to say, look, if you make a mistake online, call me, let me come and help you. And we need to have that conversation more often. Because if you're assuming that your kid isn't going to do something wrong, you're setting them up for failure in their ability to relate to you. Like my little girl, she's stuck Instagram, okay? It's not like horrible. I found she'd gone and looked at RedTube. Not horrible, but these are things that need to be attended to. And so in responding to them, the response has to be one of measured approach instead of a, you're never using the computer again. Because it's just unrealistic to tell them you're never using the computer again. So let's look quickly at making it better. For the people who are the aggressors, we need to teach kids how to not go out of their way to exclude someone. It's fine to have a group of friends, and these are your favorite people, and these are the people you choose to do stuff with, and these are your buddies, as long as you remain welcoming and respectful to others. But if what you're doing, and I call it natural exclusion, like these are my favorite people, those people aren't my favorite people, but if they're standing next to me, I'll talk to them, I'll say hello. What's not okay, and what a lot of kids do, is called aggressive exclusion. And it's where they're like, these are my favorite people, and you're not in it. And I want you to know it. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You could use group text, but then make plans with a couple people. You could put a picture up on Instagram of 8 people, but only tag the 2 that you think are a big deal. This is a very painful way that kids have of saying to someone, you don't count. You weren't there. You were there, but you weren't there. You didn't matter. Public declaration of friendship changes. These are things that are, not okay, and we want to talk about them. Additionally, stereotypes lead to a lot of bullying. From infancy, girls are taught that they have to be these sexy, attractive princesses, and boys are taught that they have to be these stoic, act like a man type boys. Sensitive boys get labeled gay, and assertive girls get labeled bitches. We need to fight back against that. A girl who's a leader is not bitchy. She's just a girl who's a leader. A boy who talks about his emotions is not gay. And if he is gay, maybe he's gay, but not gay as a negative. So gay, when it's used as a negative, is the problem, as opposed to being used as a state of being. And we have to talk about all of these issues. Why are some kids so judgmental? Well, they're very much immersed in a culture of judgmentalism. You know, you open a magazine and you see columns, who wore it best, with 2 celebrities in the same outfit and a rating. Well, then we wonder why this happens on Instagram all the time. There's beauty contests on Instagram. The difference is between celebrities or 2 7th graders, how do you think you feel when you're 7th or 8th or 9th grade and you see people rating you on how you wore something? It's very difficult. It's a culture where every body part is picked apart and objectified, and it's a very stressful way for kids to have to live. Reality TV shows give them the message that if you're prettier or better or thinner or smarter or richer, you deserve better treatment. That you can do things and get away with it. But in the real world, we need to teach them. Just because you're better looking than another kid or smarter or your parents have more money doesn't mean you deserve better treatment. And we have to get rid of this sense of entitlement that a lot of kids are bringing with them in their interactions. When kids do make mistakes, instead of focusing on punitive actions, we want to focus on restorative actions. You know, who did you hurt? Take the accountability. Say I did it. How can you make it better? What steps can you take to repair the relationship? If we approach from this point of view our kids' mistakes, we will reduce the circle of pain instead of expand it. Also, we'll reduce the chances that kids try to hide from us when they screw up. Because if they know, you know, oh, I have to repair things versus, oh, I lose my phone for 6 months, which thing are they going to try and hide from me more? So there is a time and a place for consequences. I absolutely believe that. But I think that every consequence should be paired with a restorative action and a restorative response. So quickly, how do we respond to the target? Number 1, don't blame yourself. Kids who get kicked out of a social group say, what did I do wrong? Why is this happening to me? Why? Why are they being mean to me? And you have to say, they're not being mean to you because you did something wrong. They're being mean to you because they're choosing to be mean. We want you to help your kids cognitively reframe it. If you have a child that's overweight and your child says, people are laughing at my photos because I'm overweight, you can say, no, people are laughing at your photos because they're choosing to be mean. And they're using your weight as justification for that meanness. But don't inflict some self-blame here. Cognitively reframing it helps our kids escape some of the negative psychological consequences of being bullied and left out. So, and that's the cutting, the eating disorders, the anxiety, the depression. If there's a kid who can say, oh, yeah, I see everything that happened on Instagram without me, but I choose right now to be at the library reading this book. Okay, you're reframing it. You're taking away the feelings of rejection and anxiety that lead to panic attacks. If you see, you put a selfie out there and only 3 people clicked like, instead of saying people think I'm ugly and bring on anxiety or depression, you can reframe it by saying, not a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people saw it in the newsfeed, or a lot of people didn't have feedback, but it's really, the validation of strangers is not what I need to feel good about myself. If I liked that picture before, I like it now, and move on. So wherever possible, we want to do these things to protect our kids from feeling victimized and from feeling emotionally constricted. I probably don't have time for another video. And who's the ultimate mediator of how long we go? This is like a 3-minute video with kids talking about what it's like when they're bullied.
You could show it, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right. I don't know if you're, are we gonna be like kicked out of the room? Okay, okay.
No, I don't know why. She's just no longer our friend.
Oh my god, she's so fat, she's so ugly, that bitch, that slut.
And she said, at least I'm not black.
It's because I have like baby hair, and since it's dark, that I look like a boy.
People used to call me fat, lazy, unworthy, stupid, faggot, gay.
Made me feel, just like they said, that I was worthless, I had no reason to live.
Then they made a chat about me, a group message, just to talk about how much they hate me
I just tried to keep deleting her, and I even blocked her a few times, and she just kept making accounts just to keep bullying me over the web.
Everything that I trusted them with was now public for everyone to see, for everyone to know. And I can't go in and delete it. I can't say this is spam, this isn't okay.
And I would have cut my wrist, thinking that one day I'll have enough courage to split my vein. And it kept happening over and over again. Sometimes by different people or the same one.
They used to catch me at the gate and beat me up. Just wail on me, like 5 different kids, stomp on me, kick on me.
She held a pair of scissors against my neck and threatened to murder me. And in that moment, I thought I was gonna die.
I believe that bullying is a crime.
I have the courage and I have the power to make a difference. Instead of bringing people down, we want to encourage and empower everyone we meet
With our words,
and with our actions,
Whether it's in person
Or online.
Okay, I'm not going to end with that because it's so intense, and I want to end with my more uplifting, hopeful endings. So bear with me for about 5 more minutes. If you have a kid who's truly being targeted, like one of these kids, then what you need to do, instead of just calling the school and saying, they're being mean to my kid, the kid needs to help you by saying, write down, these are the specific actions that are taking place. This is how these actions are affecting me, and this is what I'd like to see happen. And then together you make a plan with the school where the kid is an empowered part of that. So just calling up and saying they're being mean isn't going to be helpful enough. And we need to empower our targets to be able to describe what's happening to themselves. We also want parents to work to accept a child's differences. Sometimes kids who don't feel like they're accepted at home are more at risk for some of the negative self-harming actions, risky sexual behavior, cutting, etc. You know, it might be that you're a mom with gorgeous long hair and your daughter wants to wear her hair super, super, super short, and it might be hard for you. It might not be what you want for her, but if it's what she wants, sometimes we have to just accept what our kids want. It's better to have short hair now than, 50 piercings down your body later. And we want our kids to look for safe places outside of school, because some kids don't fit in at school. Those are the kids who need the swim team, and they need the theater club, and they need the art class, and other places where they can have valuable friendships. And the final section that I want to focus on, and it's really, really important, is making allies instead of bystanders. We talked about how bullying is bad for the victim. It's actually bad for everyone. Kids who observe bullying have increased levels of anxiety because they're afraid it's going to happen to them. And kids who do the bullying are at risk for problems like substance abuse, anxiety, and depression. So we know it's not good for anyone. So it's not just a matter of helping the targets, we have to help everyone. And that, most importantly, means teaching kids to get help for each other when they need it. So we have to do a better job of telling kids, you're not a snitch if you report something. All schools should have a way to have anonymous reporting in place. Every school, and you should always know that you never speak at the same time with the aggressor and the target, that you speak to them separately. Also, at any time you speak to an aggressor, you say, hey, we've been having multiple reports about these behaviors, to shut down them trying to figure out who snitched, even if you know only one kid came forward. When you talk to that aggressor, it's, hey, people have been reporting this is happening. Do everything we can to make it a safe environment for reporting. Kids should learn, okay, I'm going to report something whenever I think I need to get someone out of trouble. Not in trouble, but out of trouble. If someone says, why'd you get so-and-so in trouble? You can switch the response to the kid who's the target and say, I was actually trying to get him or her out of trouble. That's what I was doing. So we want to, shift the discussion. Here's a real-life scenario to consider from a prep school that I worked at earlier this year, which really brought up issues of what to report. 20 kids were at a party at a house. They went in the room, and the boy who's was like the most popular boy there, these were teenagers, this was actually middle schoolers, the boy who was the most popular boy there FaceTimed a girl who was not at the party with 20 other kids in the room. He didn't tell her that 20 other kids were watching her through the iPad, and he convinced her to take off her shirt and bra and say that she would, perform oral sex on him. Of the 20 other kids in the room, not one of them stopped him, not one of them warned her, not one of them spoke up. In fact, the only thing they did was text people who were in other rooms to say, quick, come in and you gotta watch this. So this is a really important study of the mentality of where kids are. And initially, when we talked to the kids about it, they were like, oh, well, she got what she deserved. She shouldn't have done it. And there was no empathy there for how much pressure she must have felt. The most popular boy, she thought that she was alone. He said, I won't tell anyone. No one was appreciating how much coercion she was under. And so that showed how much education needed to happen. And if it has to happen at that school, it has to happen at every school. And so these are the type of situations where no one would have known about this except that one boy whose mom monitors his phone saw the text that her son was not at the party, but he had received a text from someone at the party that said, you won't believe what's happening, you gotta come here. So she was very worried that her son would be labeled, and so we had to come up with a way for her to anonymously report what happened. So we downloaded screenshots from her phone of what was happening. We used a Sharpie to black out her son's name so no one would know. We mailed it to the school and said, this happened over the weekend, you have to look into it. So really, no one does know who reported it, and that's always a possibility. There's always a way to report it anonymously and get help for someone who needs it. So we want kids to know to be a witness or an ally and not a bystander. You don't need to be a bystander. You can help. The final thing that kids need to learn is that standing up to bullying doesn't mean banding together to attack the bully. Sometimes we'll see a situation where a kid is mean to another kid. So that kid's friends are like, I'm gonna stand up to bullying. Let's go crush him. Let's go crush her. And all of a sudden you have a wave of hate coming at someone else. That's not really standing up to bullying. Standing up to bullying is surrounding the person who's being targeted with support and care. How can your kids cyber support instead of cyberbullying? They can choose not to click like or share on the mean things. They can choose to make a report. Let someone know if he or she is being tricked. Take social conflict offline. Talk in person. If you see something happening, do something to provide support instead of fan the fire and of escalation. And finally, the best way to be whole is to take care of yourself so you can support others. So that goes back to recognizing when you have feelings, strong emotions of anger or jealousy or sadness, and how to first comfort yourself. You'll never really fix them by trying to take down the person who you feel jealous of. But you can fix them by working on yourself and reducing the circle of pain. And so this is the approach that I recommend that kids take as they work through having lives that play out on social media, and it's the approach I recommend that you take. One that's focused on restoration instead of punishment, on practical talks instead of pretending things don't exist, and especially one of validation of females, of males, and of everybody as a human being. So thank you. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to take questions. I also have copies of my book, Bullied, which I'll sign. They're $15. I take credit cards. Okay. Okay. Very aggressive with this stuff. So it's so interesting and an important question because you don't want to victim blame, but at the same time, we want to show that people have agency over their actions. So if your son is receiving boob pics,
I'm still out.
Okay. If a boy is receiving, and it happens, if a boy is receiving boob pics or butt pics from a girl, what we have to teach him is that oftentimes girls send those because of the reasons that I said were the more harmful reasons, that I'm trying to get attention, I'm trying to get someone to like me, I'm trying to get noticed in the world. And we have to teach the young men that they bear some responsibility too, that just because they received it, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to pass it around to everyone. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to call her a slut. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to take this and now mistreat her with it. So she would be what we call in this case a provocative target. A provocative target is someone who might have done a behavior that could provoke a response. But even provocative targets don't deserve to be mistreated. No one does. Another example of a provocative target would be a kid who's just annoying. Like a kid who has annoying behaviors and other kids just don't like that kid. And so other kids don't want to hang out with that kid because they don't like the way the kid is. They just don't like the kid's personality. The fact is, whether or not you like someone's personality doesn't mean you have the right to mistreat them. So we had a situation like that in a school that I was at recently where there was a kid who was a provocative target, and a special ed kid who other kids didn't really enjoy talking to, and we had to say, look, you can't be mean. You don't have the right to be mean just because you don't like someone. You cannot, no one deserves to be mistreated. So even when there's a provocative situation, we have to teach our kids how to be agents of their own responses. And it's a really important thing to teach. We can control our responses.
I'm just wondering, with all that we've seen, to me the upside seems so very little on social media. I mean, why not just say no? I mean, first of all, we've got parents complaining that kids go to bed way too late. Most of the time we know they're not working on their homework. They've gotten lost somewhere. Even in the more, in the less concerning situations. So if you get on Pinterest, I know, as a 40-year-old woman, you can drop 2 hours there. You start looking at one thing, and then evolve, and then if I, as a 40-year-old woman, can't, rein that in very well, I feel like I'm putting my kid in a losing situation to do that and to say, develop your own inner sense of who you are. But yes, we understand that you're trying to get 900 likes or 900 friends. I mean, it's talking out of both sides of your mouth. Why not just say no?
The problem with just saying no is that we can't deny that this is the world in which they live. So if you flat out say no, and I tried this actually with my teen, I didn't let her have a cell phone until long after everyone else did. And it had a very, very measurable, devastating effect on her inclusion socially. I still don't let her use social media for some of these reasons, the time drain and whatnot. But when you have a situation where we just say no, what's going to happen is they're going to sneak around you. They're still going to find a way. So then, whether it's at a library, or whether using another friend's phone, or whether they will find a way to sneak around you, and then you're going to have the kid who's also lying. And so
But all these bad cases, I mean, for the most part, kids weren't sneaking around their parents. Even though parents authorize it, when they get that group pack mentality.
yes, they have a very dangerous group pack mentality.
It's very.
That's why you should monitor.
It's unhealthy with kids.
It's unhealthy, and it is unhealthy, and it is an addiction. This is why I do recommend the monitoring. Some of the steps that I recommend you take, and I have a technology and family use contract, which I emailed to the school, and I can email out to you. And we have it in place in our family, and it helps a lot for some of this. We have certain expected rules that prevent some of the addiction. For example, we have a phone basket in our house. Phones go into that basket at every meal, everybody's phone. We have, in our contract, our daughter is built in to have a total of 2 hours of time with her phone each day, no more. So that, and we also have a rule of only one screen at a time, so no one can sit in front of the TV while they're also on their iPhone or their small phone, right? Like a one screen rule. There are ways to establish family boundaries, and if someone violates them, you say, okay, you lose the phone. And we've done that with our kid. We also have in the car, since I, the driver, am not allowed to be on a phone because it's not safe, I want people to talk to me. Everyone's phones have to go in the trunk. When I drive a carpool of girls, their phones go in the trunk. They have to talk to me. They have to talk to each other. And all of these are ways to respond to exactly that. So it's true that we can't eliminate it, but we can try to work with it. And I think that working with it ultimately will be better, because saying no altogether is going to set you up for a really contentious relationship with your kid, that's hard too. I mean, that's really hard too. Yes?
One other quick comment, then, once they get to middle school and upper school, homework discussions happen
Right,
there.
that's right.
Scheduling of.
Right, everything's on a listserv.
Sports practices.
Yeah, I think social media,
Yeah.
I don't mean, I'm very much telling them, use technology so that it works for you.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, the idea around these social media.
Yeah, social media is
only
work.
to make money for the people who have
Right.
the social media
Right.
sites. There's no real interest in connecting people. They particularly design a format that requires that you click in to get that
Yeah.
dopamine burst. Like,
Yeah.
it's a drug.
Social media has a lot of problematic aspects.
Technology in general.
Yeah, it is. It's a hot stimulus, and it's very addictive, and so I think it's important to build these boundaries around it, because we see all the problems with it. With the kids, you really want to make sure they still have places where they have conversations that aren't through texting and social media.
And Carrie, I can make a comment just being the upper school counselor. There are upper school students who opt out, who aren't out. And what's funny is
So
I
nice.
run a volunteer activity, and there's a student who's now a senior who's opted out of all of high school. I don't know whose choice it was, but he's complied. And so every time something update is posted, one of the group leaders is like, oh, I need to text so-and-so. So they find, which is great. Like, so he's got enough, I think, like social capital that people are willing to take that extra step.
We
Does he still
actually-
miss out sometimes?
Well, it's funny, we actually see that the social media addictive use sort of is stronger in the middle school type girls, and that's because it's still so new, and they're also so insecure at that age around groups and groupthink. It isn't that uncommon to have kids as they move up to 9th or 10th grade be, I'm over it. You know, like okay, I miss having the 6 hours of my day that I used to have. And so I think that it's a very welcome thing when kids make that decision, but along the way to help, I think you need to have these types of guidelines. Like with our kids' phone, we have these guidelines. She doesn't get it, she doesn't just get it unfettered.
I personally feel I have a child who is very principled, probably 2 principled, and is always sticking up for the person who's being picked on. And the situation ends up being that he then is the person that will get targeted for getting involved. And I struggle with what is the right message, because I want to tell him that what he's doing is the right thing. Yet it's very hurtful on the other side. So what's the right message there? Because I don't want him to stop, getting involved and doing the right thing.
So he's doing the right thing for sure, and especially because you said he's supporting the target instead of attacking the bully, right? Okay, so that's the good first step. If your son has the social capital, meaning like enough other kids listen to him, there are a couple different ways to handle this. One is to try and recruit a few additional allies. Like say to them, hey guys, we keep seeing kid X picked on in these situations. And I'm, there I am raising my sword and helping out, but it sure would be great if one of you would come and pat him on the back one day and say, hang in there. But that's hard to do, okay? So maybe your son says, no, I can't recruit allies. Another thing to do is there are ways to show support that aren't as public. So if your son, another option could be send a text to the kid who was being picked on, hey, I saw what was happening. I'm sorry that happened to you. You don't deserve that. But he doesn't say it while everyone's still around. Another thing is that teachers to whom kids feel a strong connection have a big influence. So, for example, if you have teachers who say these behaviors aren't okay and the kids are still doing them, what's happening is the kids don't feel connected enough to those teachers or don't feel enough respect for that teacher to listen to what that teacher is saying. So what you need is to get your most well-liked teachers, your most popular teachers, to connect with kids who are perpetrators and say to them, hey, this isn't cool. My husband's a high school math teacher at a big public high school, and he has I've learned so much around this, around how if you connect with your students on an emotional level, you can set the tone for how they treat each other. So what you want to do is find a well-liked, really good, popular teacher who says something like to other kids, like, this is what we want. We want more of what this kid is doing. Make the teacher your partner. And that's part of the school climate. If your school is saying, don't bully, and bullying is rampant, then you have a problem between the connectiveness of the school's leaders and the students. And if that's happening, it's good to know about it. That means that the teachers have to do a little extra work on that connectivity. My husband, who teaches everything from calculus to algebra, on every test he puts, he includes a question that has nothing to do with math. You know, tell me who your favorite character is from Supergirl, like if someone watches that, or whatever. And then, you know, at the end of every test, as he hands them back, he always has, I'm going to tell my favorite mistake and my favorite question. So he'll pick one of the mistakes someone made and why it's his favorite mistake of the test, to show kids it's okay to screw up and this was a great mistake. And he'll always pick someone's random, this was my favorite thing I learned about someone. And it's like, look forward to. Find ways to connect with your kids. And the reason this is relevant is a couple of years ago, in my husband's class, a couple boys came in and one boy said to another guy, hey, I like your socks, no homo. So boys say no homo to try and show, like, oh, I'm not gay. Like, I might be telling you I like the way you look, but no homo, you can't, don't think I'm gay. It's very common language amongst high school boys. So my husband heard it, and he's very connected to the kids, and he said, and I'm just gonna pick a boy's name so I don't say the name, but he said, Jake, I'm glad you like the socks, but you can't talk that way in this classroom. And Jake was stunned, and the first thing he said to my husband was, why? Are you gay? That was like his first thought. And my husband said, it's irrelevant whether I am or not. He's like, I happen to be married, but you can't speak that way in this class because it's not respectful. And because we had this type of relationship, he was able to do this and say this. So now he has this, you know, this kid who's been saying no homo to people for weeks and weeks, saying, well, okay, I won't do that. And he doesn't do it. So we want our teachers to connect with our kids and be an influence.
Sorry, this is exactly the same material.
I'm not going to show them how to hide apps on their phones.
Good.
Oh, thank you. It's similar except for the parts that are for parents. Yeah, it won't be quite as thorough, but and no like lists of most popular forbidden websites and no tutorials on how to hide your apps. And you had a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Very rich.
Thank you.
I just wondered if you could comment on microaggressions in social
Oh yes.
I mean, I don't know if it's more acceptable on social media or
It shouldn't be
it's
acceptable
more
anywhere.
easily recognized because it's blasted to the world.
Yeah.
But if you're creating this hostile environment, the parents usually are not even in tune to because they're not seeing what's happening.
Right.
And it carries over into our kids' social, personal, and academic life.
Yeah. For those who don't know microaggressions, are you familiar with the work of Derek Wings? So microaggressions are like small little things done, usually based on stereotypes, that create an environment that can feel hostile. For example, it might be if you see a black man walking, you cross to the other side of the street. And to him, it can be conceived as a microaggression because you're using a stereotype of I'm afraid of you. If you see a woman in an office, you ask her, can she make the coffee? That could be conceived a microaggression. Oh, like the stereotype, the women only make the coffee. So these are the types of, that's what a microaggression is. So microaggressions are built, they're little things, not like super overt, but just built on stereotypes. And they are everywhere. And they are on social media. One of the things that you can do, and that's actually a somewhat different presentation. It's a presentation on diversity and microaggressions, which is a very, very important topic. But one of the things you can do to start with is make people aware about it. Like, a lot of kids don't realize how the language that they use as a joke is a microaggression to someone else. And within minorities, it is okay within minorities for a minority to use a word that is about their group, whereas it's not okay for someone who's not that group. For example, I'm Jewish, and I know that if one of my friends makes a joke about little tiny Jewish girls with lots of hair, you know, that's me. It's funny to me. But I think if I were out and someone who was, you know, a tall, willowy person was like, oh, she's another one of those little Jews, I think it'd make me feel uncomfortable. And we see this with kids using things like the N-word. We see this with kids using language that you cannot use language, you cannot appropriate language from other cultures. It is not okay. And kids do it all the time. And it's something that we need to be aware of and talk about. And even within cultures, there are many people who aren't going to be comfortable with the language anyway. And those kids get labeled too sensitive, babies, and this and that when they speak up. And we need to create a safe environment for them to talk about it. Microaggressions can even be, like, let's say, a classic microaggression. I worked in an inner city school where the population was 50% Latina and 50% African American last week. Every staff member was Caucasian. So that is a form of a microaggression, because what it does is it sends the message to the kids that the only white people could be teachers and be in charge, and there was no reflection of who they were in the staff of their school. So a way to address that microaggression would be that school needs to do more work to hire more teachers that are Latino and are African American. So when we talk about microaggressions, we have to look at the big picture of how other people might perceive things. Yes?
What do you say to the families who try to empower their children to stand up for themselves, and all the things that you discussed today, and got your evidence and the whole bullying thing, and you try to just kind of do all the healthy stuff that you have suggested today, and your kid just doesn't want you to deal with it, and they don't want you to report or even approach the situation just because it is damaging. I've done this 4 years ago with another daughter, and it just was so damaging to this day. She will not.
So here's the key. It has to be when a report is made. Do you remember those 3 steps? I actually have a worksheet like this that I give to kids. It shouldn't be necessarily coming from the parent, because then the kid feels like he or she's not in control of what might happen. So the worksheet is like this. Describe the behaviors. So the kid is supposed to write exactly what's happening. Maybe I sit down at lunch and everyone rolls their eyes at me, lifts their tray, and walks to another table. Okay, so that would be a very specific example of a behavior, as opposed to people are mean to me at lunch, right? You want it to be very specific. Second, how is it affecting you? I'm hiding in the bathroom during lunch because I'm afraid of having to eat in front of people, and so that's how it's affecting me. Part 3, what would you like to see happen? This is the critical part. If a kid feels like he or she is not in control of what's going to happen, they won't let me make a report. They'll say, Mom and Dad, this terrible thing is happening to me, but if you tell anyone, I'm going to kill you. And then everyone suffers. So what you have to do is brainstorm with your kid. Well, in an ideal world, what would you want to happen? It could be something as simple as switch my lunch period. It could be have someone talk to them. Lots of times kids don't want someone to talk to them. It could be, I want someone to listen to me. I just want a counselor to listen to me. It could be, I want to have an excuse at lunchtime to be doing something or be somewhere. Maybe that's when I set up my weekly therapy. But if we give the kid the power over saying what the response will be, they're going to be more willing to do it, and they won't say you made things worse. And it's really important to do that.
They always say they don't care. They say it doesn't bother me, I'm okay. That's the part where it gets confusing.
That is hard, because some kids, if they say they're okay, and they really are okay, then back off. But if they say they're okay but they're cutting, or they say they're okay but they're bitching and purging, that's a whole different story. And that's where you have to do a lot of work with them. And in doing that work, keeping it as private as possible for their sake, but also listening without judging. A lot of kids, when you ask them what helps, just having someone listen is the first thing, without judging. They don't want us to come at them and say, try this, try this, try this, try this. They want us to say, God, that really sucks. I'm so sorry this is happening. And then we find a therapist, and then you do something to help.
Carrie, I want to be respectful of time.
Yeah.
Because it's been an hour and a half, so please approach Carrie if you have questions. Also, her books are here. Thank you for coming.